Hello there, my name is Michael Maynard and welcome back to Gorilla Picking. Now, what we're going to do today, folks, is review this absolutely gorgeous lock. This is a thing called the Ruko Merkur 401 and it is a medium security lock made by Assa Abloy. It is fairly common in Denmark and to a lesser extent in Germany. And before we go any further, folks, I want to give you the summarised highlight version. This is a fantastic lock, and if it was available in New Zealand, I would have it on my front door in a heartbeat. This lock is so far ahead of other conventional 6-pin locks that it's not funny. And that's actually why I love this lock, folks. It does an awful lot with a very little. So as elegant engineering answers go, as elegant engineering designs are concerned, this lock is a fantastic product. It really is. Now, with that said, I am also going to teach you how to pick it. And you might, so that this is going to be a picking tutorial as well as a review, okay? And if you are a consumer wondering why a guy is both reviewing a lock and singing its praises, but also teaching people how to pick it, the answer is very simple. This lock is so difficult to pick that it is easily more secure than you need for an ordinary commercial or domestic environment. So if we are talking about locks to go on the front door of your house or a lock on your commercial premises, this lock is easily, far and away secure enough to do it. And in fact, it is far more secure than almost any other 6-pin lock you're going to see on the market. The information that I'm giving on picking will never be used by a criminal trying to get into a building surreptitiously, because the skills, they just won't do it, okay? So the picking information is more for locksmiths and for lock hobbyists. So with that said, why do I like this lock? Well, look, I could rave on. The first thing to talk about is the overall build quality of the thing. Assa Abloy are known for making beautiful locks. Ruko have been making beautiful locks for decades, and when they were bought by Assa Abloy a few years ago, the quality, if anything, improved. So to begin with, we've got a beautifully made piece of equipment here. The tolerances on this thing are incredible, and I just want to show you a couple of features on the body of the lock itself. Let's just zoom into that. You can see that there is some anti-drill protection up here at the top, so you are not going to drill out this lock in a hurry. It has got 6-pin chambers, as you can see, and those of you that have got an eagle eye will see that there is actually a little groove for a sidebar down the side there. Now that is very good news, folks, because the reason for that is that the Merkur, the 401, this cylinder here, has got a bigger and nastier older brother called the Triton. And the Triton is exactly the same core configuration, but with a sidebar along the side. And you can either have a 2-pin sidebar or a 5-pin sidebar. And if you wish to install that much higher security lock, you don't have to change the door hardware. All you do is get your locksmith to change out this part here, the core, give you a new set of keys, and away you go. So it is a fantastic feature, and I really love that they have future-proofed the lock by doing it this way. Now, it's also reduced their production costs, because in order to make the housings for both the Merkur and the Triton, they just need to do one set of housings, you know, so it's a very clever thing. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is the core itself. Now, if you guys that have been around for a while will see that that keyway looks a little bit like the D12, and the D12 was an Assa Abloy product from a few years ago. It's still in service now. This lock is a kind of an evolution. It's a next step up from that. So it has got a very, very, very difficult keyway, which is half of the reason why it's difficult to pick. And you'll see that the business end of the keyway here, where the pins go, is completely to one side of all the warding down the bottom here. And that means that when you are picking this, you have got a very small amount of room to work on. And I'll talk more about that when we do the tutorial part of this video later on. But bottom line is, difficult keyway shape makes it very, very, very secure. Okay, what else is good? We have anti-drill protection up at the top here. So we've got 2 steel rods. We have got 6-pin chambers, as you can see, and if I can ever get this thing to focus, you will see that every single one of those chambers is counter-milled. That makes picking this lock very, very, very difficult. So for you guys in the industry and the hobbyists, you know what I'm talking about here, but for people who are consumers, you might not understand that or not even care. But trust me when I tell you, these little serrations here, these little grooves, if you like, make this lock incredibly difficult to get into. Now, what else is different about this? Well, again, eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that there are 2 little slots on each chamber. So we've got the round circle of the chamber drilled there, and then we've got little slots that go across horizontally. And what are they for, you might ask? Well, that is an excellent, excellent question. Those are for little wings in the pins. Now, this is where the D12 history comes in, folks. This system first came out with the D12. Okay, the pins are not regular symmetric pins, so they don't come to a conical point like every other pin does. They in fact come to 2 different points. So you can see that the pin is kind of chisel tipped like that, and it has got 2 peaks to it. It's got a long and a short peak. So you can see that we've got a round pin at the top, so that's just the standard configuration, okay? But down at the bottom, the business end where the key goes, there are those 2 levels, 2 little peaks, and that's where the 12 comes from in D12. So you can see that the key in fact has got 12 cuts to it, so not just 6. Okay, so there are 6 pins, but each pin has 2 peaks, so we in fact have 12 little cuts in the key. Now, we're going to do a little bit of maths on that later on, guys. I'm going to show you some pictures and do some maths, and I'll show you why Assa did that. But trust me when I tell you, it makes the lock phenomenally more secure and phenomenally more adaptable. There are many, many more things that you can do with it. Now, just while we're on the topic of the key, one of the features of the Merkur that they're proud of is that it is hard to determine the bitting of the key and the lock just by looking at it. So with a standard key, you can actually sort of glance at it and get a fairly good idea of what the bitting of the lock might be. So I'm just going to show you guys my front door key. Okay, I use my front door key a lot in my videos. That's my front door key, okay, and it's only 5 pins. It's a pitiful little lock. And you could have a look at that, and you could see that lying on my desk at work, and you could probably go home and cut a key just based on what you saw at a glance that would get you into my house. Now, on the other hand, if you got a bit of a glance at that, you're never ever going to be able to figure out which are the important cuts on that and how to duplicate that by eye. So it makes the key a lot more secure. The other thing about the key is that it is very, very solid in the way that Assa keys usually are. Assa make their keys, generally speaking anyway, bigger and heavier than normal companies, so it makes them more robust and less prone to breakage and damage and wear. So with luck, that key will keep working for a very, very long time. Okay, now I think it's probably time we talked about the pinning. First thing I'm going to do is cover the top pins very, very briefly, okay? Because the top pins are the standard Ruko spools that we all love. So here is the pin, if it'll ever focus. Let's just back that out a wee bit. So you remember me saying that the chambers have got that countermilling, they've got those grooves. Now the grooves are designed to catch on the little edge lips of this pin. So you can see that that pin, if it ever focuses, has got very, very sharp grooves on the edge of it. And here is our core, and here are these little grooves, and these pins catch in these little grooves. You can see that they kind of snick in there and are very hard to get out. So that is a feature that Ruko has used for many years. So has Assa now, and it makes the lock very, very difficult to pick. So that's all I really want to say about the top pins, but my God, are we going to talk about these bottom pins. Now, first thing I'm going to do is show you one up close and just show you these wings. So if I grab this little tiny one for a start, and you can see here that this is a very little wee short pin, okay, and it's not completely round. Like I said, it doesn't come to a point like a normal pin does. It comes to those two different peaks there that you can see, and then as well as that there are those wings. So we've got those little wings on the side like so, you can see those there, which keep the key pin in the correct orientation. And you can see why that would be important, because if the key pin was to rotate in its chamber, then of course you're going to get the wrong part of the key pin interfering with the wrong part of the key, and the lock would jam. So you need to keep it in position. Now the wings do another very cool thing as well. If you have a look closely at these pins, you will see that the wings are all different lengths and in slightly different positions on the key pin. So for example, look at this one here. The key pin, the wings are just very short down here, and then in this one they are much longer, and then in this one here they're tiny and they're right up towards the to the top of the pin. Now what does that do? Well, what that does is two things. Number one, it makes sure that no matter how high the pin is pushed, the wings never completely come out of the chambers. Okay, so you think about it. All right, when you are inserting the key, all the pins are going to go and come up well above the shear line until they settle into their right positions. Now these little wings are designed such that you can never push a pin so far out that its wings lose contact and the pin rotates and jams. So that's the first thing about the position of the pin, of the wings. Now the second thing, and this is a massive security feature, guys, what it does, those little different positions of the wings make sure that not all of the pins drop right down into the bottom of the warding. So some of them are held up a little bit, okay? And what that means is that you cannot bump this lock. So lock bumping is a very, very quick and easy way to gain entry into a lock. It's kind of like pick gunning, okay? So pick guns and bumping use the same broad techniques. And having these wings such that some of those pins are held above the level of the other pins makes those methods of attack not work. Fantastic, fantastic design idea, and so simple. All they had to do was put those wings in slightly different positions and it made the lock unbumpable. Very, very, very cool idea. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is a little bit of drawing and a little bit of maths, and I'm still talking about the pins, guys, okay, because this is one of the things that I think is awesome about this lock, all right? Now, when you are dealing with an ordinary 6-pin lock, you generally have 9 possible lengths of key pins. So if we have got 9 possible key pin lengths, and we have got 6 pins in total, we have 9 to the power of 6, which is about 531,000 possible combinations. Okay, so that's a standard lock. There are, at absolute maximum, about 500,000 possible key combinations, but it's actually quite a bit lower than that, okay? And the reason for that is that some key bittings are not allowed. So you can't have a very, very high key bitting next to a very low cut, for example. Or you can't have a key where all the cuts are the same. So there's a certain number that you aren't allowed. And a forensic locksmith once, a guy who testifies in court on these things, told me a really, really quick and dirty way of estimating the actual usable number of combinations. What he said was, you take off one possible key position, one possible pin length. So instead of calculating 9 to the 6, you calculate 8 to the power of 6. So let's do that. 8 to the power of 6 is about 262,000 possible key combinations for an ordinary 6-pin lock. And the numbers will vary with the locks, okay, but it'll be somewhere around that. So, you know, let's call it just over half of the possible key bittings are usable. Okay, now, you will already have figured out, I guess, that with these amazing little double-bitted key pins, you can get far more possible combinations. And it turns out that there are 13 possible key pin lengths of these things. So Assa, being Assa, okay, they call them by letters and not numbers. And the letters are between A and W, so a lot of letters aren't used, okay, but they have a total of 13 of these things, okay. But wait, there's more. So not only have we got 13 possible keep in sizes, shall we say, okay, but because these key pins are reversible, we have actually got double that number of possible key pins. So instead of having 9 possible key pin lengths or sizes, we have got a total of 26, believe it or not, okay? And the maths on that is absolutely phenomenal. 26 to the power of 6 is 308 million, okay? And if we again decide that the actual usable number will be considerably less than that, okay? So we take off one possible position, 25 to the 6 is 244 million possible key combinations, okay? So what Assa have done by good engineering basically is taken an ordinary dirty old 6-pin lock concept, very, very well known, very well understood in the industry, been around for 100 years. They have added some very, very smart key pin ideas and taken the number of possible combinations up from a few 100,000, let's call it 300,000, okay, to over 200 million possible combinations. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute, okay? Because there's even cooler stuff to come, all right? But I just want to tell you a quick thing about how they specify the key pins. So the key pins are called A to W in capital letters with a few missed out, okay? And when you reverse the key pin, it's the same letter, but it's actually in lowercase. So when you are specifying the bitting for a lock, a normal lock company might specify a key as 1, 3, 6, 7, 4, 2 or something like that, okay? And that would be the cuts on the key. What Assa do, okay, is use letters, so it might be A, C, F, G, W, B, let's say, for argument's sake. But because the key pins can be reversed, right, the actual bitting that you might get might be something like A, little c, big G, little w, big T, little m, for argument's sake, just as a random example, okay? So they, again, you know how I said that this lock does a lot with a little, okay? It does a fantastic amount with only 26 key pins. It's just so cool. So if you're a locksmith and you need a service kit for this, you don't need 26 key pins, you just need 13. You just need to know this code here, and you can build up the, you can make the key. Very, very cool. All right, now, there's more to come, guys, okay? I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's still more that I've got to show you, okay? This lock is used extensively for mastered systems, so that means big companies, hospitals, whatever, where you need a master keying capability. And yes, you can do that with the ordinary master wafers that we know and love. So and here's another thing, the difference between the steps of the heights of the key pins is 0.6 of a millimeter, okay? So that's the, it's about 23.6, I think, thousandths. And with Assa, you only need one step for a master wafer. So with most systems, the tolerance is a bit sloppy and you need 2 key pin steps. You can do the mastering on just one step with Assa. That's how good the tolerances are. But it even gets better than that. So let me draw you a key pin, folks. So I'm just going to draw one random kind of a key pin that might look about like that. So there's our key pin, okay, and let's have a think about the key bitting that fits that. So we've got a key that has got a cut that looks like that, and then it goes on to the rest of the key, okay, and that bitting raises this pin to the shear line, and that gets us into the lock. Now if you just think about that for about 1 second, okay, you will see that there are a big stack of other key bittings that will open that pin, so that will get that pin to shear line. You only need one of these peaks to be in contact with the key. So let's just draw that key pin again, okay, so here he is, he looks a bit like that, okay. Let's say we've got a key whose bitting looks like that. That's still going to open that lock, guys, okay. So because this point's in contact with the key, it's raised it to the correct height, and the fact that this bit of the key here is down the bottom and we've got a gap here doesn't matter a damn. And you know, if you had a key that was just like that, it would work. Or if you had a key that was like that and missed down the bottom here, that would work as well, okay. Now just think of the master keying potential that you can get just from the key pins without even starting to mess around with master wafers on top here. The possibilities are absolutely phenomenal. And if this was available in New Zealand, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. I'd stick it on my commercial premises at work, okay? You can do some amazing master keying with this thing, some incredible stuff just with the key. Honestly, I'm absolutely gobsmacked, eh? I really am. So again, to summarise, the pinning on this thing is fantastic. It's got the keys that have got 2 points on them that can be in either one or the other configuration. So we've got 13 possible key pins for a total of 26 possible key pin positions with over 200 million possible combinations and master keying potential absolutely galore. Honest to God, folks, I wish I worked for Assa Abloy, eh? I wish I was the guy that had thought of that, because it is absolutely fantastic. Okay, I think I've actually raved about enough about this lock now, so what I'm going to do now is just a quick tutorial on how to pick the thing. And again, I emphasise, folks, for you folk who are consumers and you're wondering why I'm teaching you how to pick this thing, it is because no criminal is ever going to stand at your front door trying to pick this, okay? It's locksmiths and it's hobbyists that are going to pick this on their bench in their workshop. This lock is far more secure than you need on your premises. And if for some reason you did need more security, let's say you're a government agency or you have other specific reasons for it, you can get the sidebar version of this as well, the Triton, and that will be more secure than you are ever going to need. Okay, all right, now let's have a talk about the tutorial part of this. We're about 26 minutes into this video, folks, and I knew it was going to be a long one, but I think it's worth it because by Christ, it's a good lock. Now, when you are picking this, there are several technical challenges that you need to overcome. The first technical challenge that you need to overcome is that you have got virtually no space in the keyway to work. So when you see this mounted up here, you can see that the keyway is incredibly paracentric and it's very hard to get onto those pins. The second thing that I can tell you is that it is very, very difficult indeed to tension, and excuse me, I'll explain why that is in a minute, but suffice it to say, you cannot even hope to pick this with bottom of the keyway tension. You just can't do it. And you might get lucky and be able to do it with conventional top of the keyway tensioning, but a conventional top of the keyway tension wrench occupies real estate in this little keyway that you need for your pick. So you'd only be able to do it if you had very, very sweetheart bitting, very easy bitting. And the other reason that top of the keyway tension isn't really very good is that your tension control needs to be so good for this thing that about half the time you actually have no tension on this at all when you are picking it. And a top of the keyway wrench will just slide out because there's no tension to hold it in there. So it's technically possible, I guess, to pick it with conventional top of the keyway, but in reality it shouldn't be done. So you'll need to make a tensioner, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Next issue that you've got is that these are Ruko spools that you are dealing with, and the Ruko spools do get caught in the countermilling. You need to be able to pick those before you can pick this lock. And the, what are we up to, fifth thing, I guess, is that because each key pin has the two different bumps to it, the lock inside doesn't feel like a normal lock. So when you're getting your pick onto the pins, instead of having a nice point to get onto, you're going to have to learn what these double peaked, I guess, if you like, pins feel like. So lots of technical challenges to overcome. Now, I want to talk about the tensioning first, because it was the tensioning, in fact, that that was the one that threw me, okay? And I had to work out that problem. And once I worked out the tensioning, this lock was actually a lot easier. What I used was a homemade tension tool that would actually tension in that slot in front of the keyway. So you can see that there is a slot here. It is 2.65 millimeters wide, and it ends just above the top of the keyway here. And what I did, I made a tension tool out of a bicycle spoke. So that is the bent end that goes in the hub of the bicycle spoke, not the rim end. And I filed down the little round knobble on the end so that it was just barely oversized 2.65 mils. What I then did was friction fitted it into the very tippity top. So if you try to fit it down here, you're going to block your keyway and you can't see what you're doing. I friction fitted it just in the top there, and it's an interference fit, so what that meant was that you can't get it in there by hand. What I did was used the same file, actually, the same file that I used to cut the flats on this. I then used to just tap this thing into the top of the keyway, or the top of the slot, excuse me. And then you'll have seen that when I was picking this thing, I could let go of the tension tool and it was just jammed in there and wasn't moving. Now again, that is because your tension control on this thing has to be absolutely exemplary. It has to be perfect. And when you are getting those pins in and out of the counter milling, you are going to have virtually no tension. In fact, I'd go so far as to say you have got no tension on there. So you need to be able to get that absolutely perfectly controlled. Okay, next thing, getting the Ruko spools in and out of that counter milling. You can either do that or you can't. What you need to be able to do to pick this lock is to get yourself a whole lot of standard old school counter mill Rukos. They've been around for 30 years. You can easily find them and learn how to pick in and out of these serrations. The short, too long didn't read version of that is that you actually pick the lock twice. So what you do first of all, you can use moderate tension and you push up all the pins until you get your first tiny little click. It is actually a false set, so you'll get mushy clicks as the pins sort of come to rest and stop, okay? And then you'll finally get one last click when the sixth one snicks into place, a very tiny sharp metallic turn on the core. At that stage, the lock can actually be picked properly. So I don't even count that as picking the lock at that stage. I count that as just getting to the lock where it can be picked. Now at that point, what you then need to do is back right off on the tension, so you've got virtually no tension whatsoever, and learn what a set pin feels like and what a pin that is sitting on a piece of counter milling feels like. And again, the too long didn't read version of that is that a set pin, fortunately, does actually feel nice and solid, and a pin that needs to click will actually give a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of counter rotation. So you need to learn how to interpret that. Okay, so that's the tension and that's the picking of the counter milling and the Ruko spools that we've covered. The final thing that I need to talk about is pick placement and the choice of pick. Now, nothing but the very best picks will do for this lock. You need the very best picks that you can afford. They need to be 15 thou or thinner. I used the Focus. Thank you so much. I used the multi-pick 0.4s, so these, I don't actually know what that is in thousandths, just let me measure that. They are okay, 16th hour, so 15th hour picks basically. They have got incredibly thin shank heights, so this dimension here is very, very thin. So not only is it skinny this way, but it's thin that way as well. The reason I like these picks is that they have got by far the best handles, by far the best pick material, and they give by far the best feedback of any 15 thousandths pick on the market at the moment. The Look Tools stuff is snapping at their heels, but they're not quite there yet. At the moment, these multi-pick picks are definitely the best for this job. And what you're going to need to do, you're going to need a short hook and a steep hook, okay? In my case, I use the V06 and the V31. And you are going to need to develop several different techniques for getting on the pins. So initially, while the pins are still in their lower states, you actually need to go in sideways. So you'll have heard people say that when you're picking a D12, it's almost like picking a dimple lock, and I agree with that, it almost is. You need to go in with your pick almost flat. So I was going in on maybe a 20-degree angle, something like that, and picking obliquely across the keyway. So if we just show you here, I'm picking from this right side across to the left side to kind of lever the pins up that first little bit. Then once you've got those pins up a little bit, you can then start slipping your very short hook up underneath the pins vertically. So there is actually room to get up above this tiny little bit of warding here, that one there, and pick for a while underneath the pins in a conventional manner, okay? And then once you have got pins that you can no longer get with that technique, you are going to need your steep hook, and again you're going to need to go obliquely. So you'll have seen me going in obliquely with this thing and then rotating it up like that to set pins. So I was able to, for one particular pin, I was actually able to get up and under and lever it vertically. But for most of them, I was going along from the side here obliquely and then kind of twisting the pick around. So you need to learn how to do that. And again, if you haven't got picks that are giving you fantastic feedback, you're just not going to be able to do that, guys. The only other thing I just mentioned, the pins, they do feel different. So when you first put your pick in there, it feels like an incredibly serrated thing with lots and lots and lots of lumps and bumps for your pick to bang into, and that's because it is. So instead of having just 6 little pointy things like a normal lock has, you've got a dozen, you've got 12 chisel shaped things that you've got to find your way around, and that's just practice. So there we go, folks. Again, I knew it was going to be a long one, 38 minutes, but I hope I have conveyed my enthusiasm for this lock. It is a fantastic lock. I would have it on my door tomorrow. And in terms of picking it, it is a very, very technically difficult lock to pick. It is doable if you learn the right skills, if you have the right tools, and if you learn how to tension it correctly. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Michael Maynard. This is Gorilla Picking. That is the Merkur 401, and I love it. Thanks, guys.